Hey guys, today we continue with extroversion. I'd recommend watching my first video on the topic or else you won't get anything from this one. So let's start. Non-reflectiveness often says lack of insight. The extroverted may well be quick in decision-making, leading and execution, but his hastiness causes disaster in situations where an elaborate planning would be more appropriate. This is our interest in today's video, how the virtue of extroversion becomes a curse. We start off with a reiteration on my previous one. We've mentioned that with his capacity of real-time adaptability, the extrovert's consciousness swallows and harmonizes itself with the ever-changing world. As he treads in coherence with everything, environmental pressure is reduced and action is made easy to execute. The second he switches environments, his consciousness reshapes a new relationship with the next perceptive stimuli, forming yet another favorable territory wherein he is in power. With each and every circumstance confronted, he creates and recreates a subjective reality wherein he thrives. An individual who adjusts himself to it is admittedly conforming to the style of his environment, but together with his whole surroundings, he is in an abnormal situation with respect to the universally valid laws of life. He may indeed thrive in such surroundings, but only up to the point where he and his milieu meet with disaster for transgressing these laws. He will share the general collapse to exactly the same extent as he was adjusted to the previous situation. His body cries for rest, for food, or tenses up because of an angry mood, of being overworked. However, most often he cannot see it. Only after these symptoms turn a palpable illness that the extroverted notices. Others, on the other hand, can easily discern on him this gradual buildup of stress. His swift adaptability to the outer environment makes itself a benefit on one hand, a tiresome curse on the other. His nature is of being outwardly immersed in people and things, as we said, but it is harder than for him to manage inner issues and sometimes elementary needs. Still speaking of his two-sided capacity, this adaptable nature allows the extrovert, as mentioned, to be utterly swallowed by and to lose oneself in objects and people, thus building ties with them made as quick a matter. Should he abuse of this spontaneous gift? Should he not resort to an occasional retreat to care for himself? What was once a gift turns a devilish curse. The example we could take is of the hard-working extrovert who, in spite of notable achievements, cannot bestow a break to himself. What could have been a minor stressor accumulates into a serious neurosis, and self-sabotage ensues. The singer who reaches to be famous and is tempted to slog for more, the first turns an alcoholic, the second loses his voice. Such is the body's response against neglect of basic needs. The resultant functional disorders, nervous or physical, have a compensatory value, as they force him into an involuntary self-restraint. The forced retraction comes about in a symbolic form, driving the extrovert away from his purpose to a hysterical state. Hysteria is, in my view, by far the most frequent neurosis of the extroverted type. Aside from physical or psychic disorders like alcoholism, the extrovert hysteria exaggerates the normal attitude of the personality. His effortless ability to adjust without losing oneself turns into a repulsive attitude of imitating others, becomes highly suggestible and thus malleable by their intentions. A constant tendency to make himself interesting and to produce an impression is a basic feature of the hysteric. The corollary of this is his proverbial suggestibility, his proneness to another person's influence. Should he keep on neglecting his basic needs for pause, the hysterical state gets complicated by further physical ailments, producing a forced introversion. In this phase, his psyche is to display contents typical to an introverted consciousness like intense and morbid fantasies, daydreaming, yearning for solitary activities, and the like. Thanks for watching, guys. You can support the journey by a simple pledge on Patreon, a simple like, share, or just comment below your thoughts on the video. It really helps a lot as well. And see you soon. Take care.